The rain came down like it had a personal grudge, drumming against the roof and turning the streets of suburban Austin, Texas, into rivers of glistening water. I had just settled into my quiet Saturday evening, the soft glow of my living room lamp reflecting off the polished hardwood floors, when I heard a frantic knock at my door. At first I hesitated, the familiar safety of my home whispering to me to ignore it, but something in the urgency of the pounding made my heart tighten. When I opened the door, I froze. There she was, soaking wet, clothes plastered to her skin, hair dripping like she had been swimming in the storm itself. And then she laughed, a strange, trembling laugh that seemed to carry both fear and relief. "I know this sounds crazy," she said, breathless, "but can I use your bathroom? If you believe in kindness and second chances, and in the idea that a simple act can change someone's life, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel." Her name was Grace, though I wouldn't learn that until a few minutes later. She looked like a stranger from a different world, a mix of anxiety and vulnerability, but there was something raw and genuine in her eyes that demanded trust. My first instinct was caution. A stranger, drenched, standing at my doorstep in the middle of a storm. Any reasonable person would have hesitated, but I had always been raised to believe that kindness, even in small doses, could ripple outward in ways you never expected. Without thinking too much, I stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. She moved quickly, water sloshing off her jacket as she crossed the threshold. The smell of rain and damp fabric followed her, but somehow it didn't matter. She was shivering, and the urgency in her eyes was enough to break down any trace of skepticism I had. She apologized repeatedly, her voice catching in her throat as she stumbled into my bathroom. I watched her as she shut the door, hearing the soft sound of running water as she tried to dry off in whatever way she could. I went back to my living room, attempting to calm the rapid thump of my own heartbeat. Grace's appearance was the first hint that something deeper was happening, a layer beneath the surface that words couldn't immediately reveal. When she emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in one of my towels, I noticed the small, subtle tremors in her hands and the exhaustion in her posture. She didn't speak much, but every glance, every movement, hinted at a story that wasn't ready to be told aloud. Over the next hour, as the rain continued its relentless fall, Grace shared pieces of her life in fragments. She had been running from an argument, from a confrontation, from a past that she couldn't reconcile. Her laughter, that first nervous laugh, was a shield she used to keep the storm from swallowing her entirely. I didn't probe too deeply, I simply listened, letting the silence between us hold as much meaning as her words. There is a strange intimacy that develops when someone trusts you in such a raw state, when they come to your home, into your life soaked and unguarded, and let themselves be human. Grace didn't need to justify her presence. She didn't need to explain why she had arrived like this, at this moment. She simply needed to exist, and I simply needed to let her. As the storm raged outside, I fetched a dry set of clothes for her from my closet. They were simple, soft, comfortable, and completely mismatched, but she accepted them with a hesitant smile that spoke volumes. There was a quiet dignity in that acceptance, a recognition that someone else, even a stranger, could provide safety and warmth without judgment. We sat in my living room, the soft hum of the heater filling the space where words faltered. Grace's story unfolded slowly, layer by layer. She had recently lost her job, her relationship had collapsed, and she had been evicted from the apartment she shared with a roommate who could no longer tolerate her growing despair. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside her, and in that moment, I realized just how fragile the line between survival and surrender could be. I didn't offer solutions. I didn't give platitudes. I simply listened, offering a presence that required nothing but attention and understanding. Sometimes, that is all someone needs, the knowledge that they are seen, heard, and allowed to feel. Grace's voice, initially shaky and guarded, gradually found strength. She spoke of regrets and missed chances, of moments she wished she could reclaim, and of fears that had haunted her in silence. It was near midnight when she finally allowed herself to relax, curling up on my couch beneath a blanket, a small, almost imperceptible sigh escaping her lips. The storm outside had subsided into a gentle drizzle, but the weight of her journey had not disappeared. It lingered in the air, a reminder that survival isn't always about grand gestures or heroic rescues. It's often about small, unassuming acts of kindness that remind someone they are not alone. Grace and I didn't exchange grand promises or declarations. There were no sweeping gestures of destiny. Instead, there was a quiet understanding, a mutual recognition of the human capacity for resilience. That night, as she drifted into sleep on my couch, I realized how profoundly a single moment of trust could alter the course of someone's life. The following morning, the sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the room in soft golden light. Grace woke to the aroma of coffee and toast, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she smiled without reservation. We shared a simple breakfast talking about mundane things, allowing the ordinary to balance the extraordinary night before. She thanked me repeatedly, each word layered with gratitude and a quiet realization that she had been offered more than shelter, she'd been offered humanity. As she prepared to leave, Grace paused at the door, her hand resting lightly on the frame. She looked at me, eyes glistening with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something ineffable. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. I shook my head, telling her that she didn't need to. The act itself, I explained, was enough. In that moment, I understood that kindness is not measured by recognition or reward, but by the quiet impact it leaves on another soul. Before she stepped out into the bright morning, I felt compelled to remind viewers that stories like Grace's exist all around us. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even in the darkest storms there is hope, please engage with this video, like, comment, and share it to inspire someone else today. I also want to make a special request. If this story moved you, please leave a comment with your own experience of helping or being helped. These small exchanges remind us that humanity is a shared journey, and that even strangers can become lifelines in ways we never anticipate. Grace left that morning, her soaked jacket now replaced by dry clothing, her burdens still present but lighter, her spirit steadied by the simple act of receiving care. Watching her disappear down the street, I understood that life often doesn't provide closure in neat packages. Sometimes it gives you moments, brief, intense, and transformative, that linger in memory and shape who you are. That night, I had learned as much from Grace as she had learned from me, that courage isn't always loud, that kindness can arrive unexpectedly, and that even a storm can bring people together in the most unlikely of ways. In the weeks that followed, Grace and I stayed in touch. She found a temporary job, secured a small apartment, and began rebuilding the pieces of her life that had been scattered by circumstance and fear. Our friendship never demanded more than honesty and presence, and it flourished quietly, like a plant nurtured by attention and patience. I realized that our encounter wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was a reminder that the human heart is capable of profound recovery when met with compassion. If this story reminded you of the power of empathy, the importance of small acts of kindness, or the courage it takes to accept help when needed, please share it with someone today. Let it be a spark that encourages others to open their doors, their hearts, and their lives, just as Grace did with me. And as you reflect on this story, remember that every person you meet carries a storm within them. Sometimes the smallest gesture, a towel, a warm drink, a listening ear, can transform the trajectory of their life in ways neither of you could predict. Grace laughed that first night, soaked and trembling, but she left smiling, carrying with her not just dry clothes, but the knowledge that she was seen, valued, and capable of finding light even after the heaviest rain.